Commissioner Hoover?
Here.
Commissioner Kaufman? Commissioner Kaufman? Commissioner Lopez? Commissioner Wardlow?
Here.
Commissioner Weekly?
Here.
Mayor Johnston?
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Do we need an approval of the agenda with no items?
Sure,
Any changes to the agenda?
Approval.
Okay, we got a move for approval by Commissioner Weekly. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Wardlow. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Agenda approved. If I could just have your attention for just a second. We've got, as you can see, lots and lots of people here. This is a workshop for the City Commission. It's the first time we've gotten together after the vote of the governor. So what we would like to do tonight is to certainly hear from everyone who would like to speak. I'd like to request that everyone is respectful and considerate of everyone's time. So if you've heard your point over and over and over again, if you could just stand up and say, we agree, so that we can make sure that we hear everybody tonight. But we promise you we are not going to treat you like Tallahassee, and you will have an opportunity to speak. We do have 3 podiums up here. At the end of this meeting, we will be giving direction. There is not a vote to be had tonight. So at the end of this meeting, after your comments and commission discussion, we will be giving direction to the city attorney and city manager. So with that, Carrie, can we start these speakers?
Okay, I'm going to call 2 people at a time. When you hear your name, come up to one of the podiums, and then we'll just keep coming up as you're called. So the first one is Arlo Haskell, and the second person is Christopher Ellis, and everyone will be timed for 3 minutes.
And ladies and gentlemen, I know you're very enthusiastic, but if you could hold your applause, please, we'll get through this meeting. Arlo.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Arlo Haskell. I live at 716 Love Lane. I want to thank all of you on the dais for acting so quickly to tackle this very important discussion about cruise ship limits in our city. I also, at the outset, I want to take this opportunity to thank Senator Ana Maria Rodriguez for her consistent support in voting with the people of Key West in fighting the port legislation in Tallahassee. Although Senator Rodriguez was unable to be with us in person today, she asked me to send her utmost support for preserving the quality of life for our city and our waters. And she wanted to say that she trusts our local elected officials to act in the best interests of their constituents. So speaking for myself and on behalf of the Key West Committee for Safer, Cleaner Ships, I'm asking you tonight to direct the city attorney to draft ordinances that do 3 things: prohibit cruise ships carrying more than 1,300 people, limit cruise ship disembarkations to 1,500 people per day, and give priority to cruise ships with better environmental and public health records. These limits were extensively debated by our community last year. Each of the 3 items earned the support of a supermajority of Key West voters. Each item was approved by majorities of voters in all 10 of Key West's 10 voting precincts. They have proven to be uniformly popular, and they will give our city some much-needed control over an industry that has operated without any regulations here for decades. It is essential, in my view, that any ordinance apply uniformly to all property within the city limits. There should be no special carve-outs and no exemptions. Allowing a single pier to continue to operate without limits would allow for 365 large cruise ships a year, one each and every day. This would barely be an improvement from the status quo, and is certainly not the change that the people of Key West have asked for. Our committee has considerable experience in defending cruise ship limits in state and federal court. We have an extensive body of research and acquired expertise in this area. We will be more than happy to sit down with city staff or with any of you to help craft ordinances that are both defensible under the law and supported by the people of Key West. Thank you for all your service to our community, and please let me know how we can help. Thanks very much.
We have Christopher Ellis and then Andrea Morowski.
Hi, my name is Christopher Ellis. I own Keyline Bike Tours here in Key West. I'm not going to get any applause, I'll tell you that. I do about 60% of my business from cruise ships. I paid out in 2019 almost $100,000 in wages to people who live in Key West. We get about $100 million a year in cruise ship passenger revenue. To snip it off is ridiculous. It's exclusionary. These limits that he has come up with have made it so only 14 ships can come in the next year. This was done intentionally to cut off all cruise ships. The only ships that can come in are the wealthy cruise line ships. That's it. We can't have Carnival come in. We can't have Royal Caribbean, which means the essential workers cannot take cruise vacations to Key West. It's ridiculous, okay? I know everybody voted for this because the cruise ships are an easy target. The simple fact of the matter is, at Christmas time, in Fantasy Fest, we'll have 100,000 people on the island. 100,000. Maybe 5,000 of them came in on a cruise ship, and they're only here for 6 hours. But we want to target on their back. How much money has been lost by businesses like myself? How much payroll has been lost? A lot. Money we could use. If Arlo has his way, over 10 years, $1 billion will not flow into the city from outside of the city. $1 billion. I'm obviously shaking. I'm so mad about this, okay? It's costing me my business. I laid off 13 people, my entire staff, the day after this referendum got voted on. And this referendum, while it was allowed to go on the ballot, the judge said it had constitutional issues, meaning that we don't have the right to regulate interstate commerce. That's the Interstate Commerce Act of 1871 or whatever. We don't have that right. So putting a target on 5,000 people who come in when there's 100,000 people in town that day and are only here for 6 hours, and all the money that they spend goes to our pockets. The people stay in the hotels paying $400 a night, half of their money that they spend goes to the hotel. Where does that go? Off island. It's ridiculous, this whole thing. We might as well just say our new motto is, we are all members of one human family, but some of us are more human than others. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Andrew and then Edie Hambright.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, city staff, for giving us this opportunity to speak and to hear so many different sides of this. Everybody's going to come up here and talk about why we shouldn't, why we should let cruise ships in, or why we should not. I'm here for a simple solution, and that is cruise ships are going to be back regardless of what we want. My solution is that this is an environmental-esque type issue that we have here. Water quality and reef restoration. That is what this has turned into. And if we can find a way to take the cruise ships, charge them some type of fee, whatever it might be, that money goes towards, again, water quality study, reef restoration. Those are the two biggest things we have here. And likewise, constantly updating reports. The Murray report that has been quoted so often is 16 years old. That needs to be updated. To put that in perspective with everybody, Alyssa Levy stood up here about a month ago talking about a 19-year plan for sea level rise. So a lot can change within this time. But that is just my solution. That is what I hope can come about this is making sure that we stick to the environmental side of things. The water is a huge, huge attraction and a huge asset for this city. A lot of people come for it. And I know a lot of businesses, charters, Fury, Sambago, you name them, they rely on this water, they rely on the quality, and they rely on the reef. So I hope that we can come to an actual solution to this when it's all said and done, rather than arguing about why we should have cruise ships and why we should not. But thank you for your time, and thank you for allowing us to speak.
Thank you.
So we have Edie and then Isabel Thorne.
The other way? Okay. Hi, I'm Edie Hembright, 924 Emma Street, apartment 103. My spouse and I really just support the Safer Cleaner Ships proposal to try to have the restrictions on the ships. We've seen the big change in terms of the environmental of the, looks like to us, cleaner water, all kind of pluses for that. We've also seen a whole bunch of businesses, even post-COVID, that there's people in town, businesses are up and going. It feels like there's season not stopping at all. And those are people coming in and just really spending the dollars with that, not folks just coming in for the day for just a little bit of different kinds of things with that. So for us, we really feel that's important. We support you all on the dais to hopefully find a way that you can support that language that we passed overwhelmingly in the city, all of your districts, overwhelmingly, to be able to have that kind of protection for the city and to go forward and really envision some very different kinds of things for Key West for all of us. Appreciate your support. Hopefully there's an ordinance of some type that can come out in some kind of way with that to support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have Isabel and then Leah Walters.
I go by Marlene, but Isabel Marlene Thorne, and live at 1019 16th Terrace. I was raised in Key West, and I may be one of the only people here, or one or two of us, that remember when the cruise ships first came in. And I'm not a historian, but that they came in at a time when Key West was quite devastated with the Navy pulling out and things were closing. And we were really in a recession depression in the 70s and 80s. My career was elsewhere, but I always came home to visit, and I'm now permanently here and have been. And the cruise ships were welcomed then, and they were a godsend at a time when Key West was devastated. So I appreciate the fact that people are losing money on the businesses. I, however, am for the smaller, cleaner, safer ships. I think what we've done is we've gone overboard on cruise ships and overboard on tourist development particularly. And that pun is intended. We've gone overboard for years now. And I've always reckoned that we should have tourist management. And so I think this cleaner, safer ship is about tourist management. So some businesses I know will be hurt by this. But I think what we've seen in the pandemic is that Key West has survived outrageously. Now we've got more and more airplanes. Having gone to school here a long time ago, I don't know that I could have survived the airplane traffic at the time. But I think we need to manage this. And so I haven't kept up with the dollars and cents. That's not my job. I'm here as a citizen, and I really do hope that the commissioners and the city grapple with what I think is critical overall for this island, and that's tourist management, not tourist development any longer. It's a new history, it's a new time, and we are not in the 70s and 80s recession. I only wish that my mother were here, and Coffee Butler and Gladys at the Chamber, all who welcomed the ships as red shawl ladies and gave out hibiscus and danced with them and welcomed them as a connection to the real world, which we didn't have much of. in the 70s and 80s. But those times are gone, and now we need to manage it. And so my appeal is not just for the cleaner, smaller ships. My appeal is overall for tourist management.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Leo and then John Wells.
Hello, I'm Leo Waters. I live at 919 Thomas Street, and unlike a lot of folks here, I'm a freshwater conch. My wife and I retired from Nashville, Tennessee. And we retired to Key West because we wanted to spend the rest of our life here. And while in Nashville, speaking of which, I'm glad to be on this side of the dais for a change. I was on the city council for many years and involved in the reinvigoration of downtown Nashville, and my wife and I actually own a tourist-related business, so I understand that business somewhat. And what you're going to hear a lot tonight is both quality of life, which certainly the cruise ships do impact that in it. We do not go downtown when the cruise ship's in. We check the newspaper every day, and there's 3 cruise ships in. We do not go on Lower Duval. And that's one of the issues. There's going to have to be a reimagining of Lower Duval. When I do bicycle down now, I see a lot of empty places. And I think part of that is due to the cruise ship and the overutilization and too much traffic in that area. Try to get a reservation down there. The other thing that you're not going to hear tonight, I don't think you'll hear ecological reasons, and that's not a new issue, folks. When I first moved here, they had a election about dredging the harbor, which is the same ecological issue. The incumbent mayor almost lost his seat over that, supporting that issue. So it's been on the minds of Key West people for a long time. What I would like to discuss very shortly is the infrastructure issue, which you're probably not going to hear a lot about. When I was in Nashville and tourism started really booming, and we have a very small downtown area. It's not the 2x4 island, but it's still pretty small, surrounded by interstates. The infrastructure there and the infrastructure costs started going out of this world. And you don't think much about that. And it's not only the structural infrastructure, the streets and the sidewalks and the roads, but it's also the governmental infrastructure, where we're talking about the police and the fire and the cost of codes and public works. So it's an impact that when it really gets down to it, if you look at the real costs, is not a tremendous amount. It's certainly nowhere close to where we're talking about $1 billion over 10 years. That's not true, I don't think. Excuse my language. So, you know, there's a lot of ramifications. Every action that you take has consequences, cause and effect. The question is, where do we want to go with that effect? Do we want to go to a quality of life and infrastructure that's helpful for the people, conducive to them, or do we want to go in a different direction? Thank you,
Lou.
Okay, we have John and then Nathaniel Linville.
It's off. Yeah. No, you turned it off.
Folks, I'm going to go ahead and turn you on
Okay.
and off so we don't have to touch the podium as much as possible,
Okay,
if that's
thank you.
okay with everybody.
Fine. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you for calling this dedicated meeting to address this important issue about cruise ships in Key West. My name is John Wells. I'm the founder of Caribbean Nautical Services Ships Agency in Key West. Thinking about this meeting tonight, I recall the first time I addressed the City Commission. It was 1982. My topic that night was a proposal to develop the crumbling Mallory Pier into a cruise port. The Commission recognized the long-term economic boon of cruise tourism and voted to apply for federal funds to rebuild Mallory, making it safe for both ships and pedestrians. As you can imagine, people had differing ideas about what to do with Mallory. Specifically, the Cultural Preservation Society wanted to ensure they had a place for their iconic sunset celebrations. The mayor wisely appointed a citizens working group to devise a solution agreeable to all. I served on that group, and all parties worked together in a civil and respectful way. We successfully devised a plan that allowed both parties to operate within certain guidelines. Cruise ships and sunset celebration could and would work in the same space. That agreement is still in place today.
I share this bit of history with you just to illustrate how opposing interests can work together for a common solution, agreeable to all. But we all know the world is different today, unfortunately. Polarization, propaganda, and pejorative speech are sadly the norms. Since that night in '82, Caribe Nautical was encouraged by the city of Key West to pursue and develop cruise ship traffic into our community. There's no doubt the direct revenues in cruise tourism dollars have benefited every city budget since those early days. There's also no doubt, if one cares to follow the science, that cruise ships do not harm Keys waters or marine life.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we please be respectful of all speakers?
All scientific studies, including the most recent from NOAA, the 2020 report on the Florida Keys Reef, states emphatically that reef decline is caused by landborne pollutants, rising water temperatures, spiny coral disease, and overfishing. To divert attention from those facts is to undermine the ultimate solution. My point being, ladies and gentlemen, is that there's ample room for cruise tourism in Key West. The Key West harbor approaches were enhanced and maintained by the federal government to support lawful maritime commerce. I urge you to disregard the unreasonable cancellation of 99% of our cruise tourists into Key West mandated by the referenda. Some of you in recent days have said you have heard the voters on this subject. I respectfully remind you that not all votes and past laws in the history of our country have been good for all people. Our founding fathers warned us of the tyranny of the majority. I hope you will take the opportunity given you by the legislators to seek a balanced solution.
Thank you,
It can
John.
be done. We've proven that in this town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Nathaniel and then Judy Martinez.
Is this on? You can hear me?
Yes.
All right, Nathaniel Linville, 1106 Thompson Street. Predictably, everyone's talking about their opinion about whether or not they like cruise ships or they think they should be here. It's always great to hear all the opinions we've been hearing since last November. The one statistic that I think is really relevant in this is the vote that we already had. And the concern that I have as a voter and as someone who lives here is our vote has been taken away from us. And the fear that I feel, the fear that I feel in this moment and at this stage of this discussion is that there's a small number of people who need to find a way to represent the will of a very large number of people. And all I would ask the commission is to realize how much people care about this who are involved. It's not just Arlo. And the people who are involved in this issue believe strongly in the science and in their opinion. And those people spoke really loudly last November. And my fear is that there's going to be some end run. That all the work we've put in and the vote that was taken, the compromise was the vote. We didn't vote to get rid of cruise ships. A lot of people in this room want to, but we didn't. That was the compromise. I was born in 1982. I know how to compromise. My parents taught me. And I just really hope that people up there can realize how many people down here really care about this and how scared we are that all the work we did and the compromise that we came up with and all of the work that was done and all the effort and energy and nights that I didn't sleep and had conversations with my wife about what might happen if this didn't work out and then we get preempted in Tallahassee. You guys are in charge. And it's pretty clear what we want. And my sincere hope is that whatever decision you make, you realize that this is tremendously important to a lot of people here. And I'll bet if you took the vote today, it would be even more than 60%. So thank you for your time. You can have your 20 seconds. I appreciate you. I'm out.
Thank you.
We have Judy and then Bart Smith.
Judy Martinez, 1020 Emma, 3A. I am for the cruise ships. I have worked 63 years and saved my money, and I am going on a cruise. But I don't want to have to drive up to Miami to get on a cruise ship. That's ridiculous. And when it comes back, I don't want to get off in Miami to come back down here. I want the cruise ship here. And that's not, I was a registered nurse, PHA, for 45 years. And if we have cruise ships, let them come one, maybe two, work their way up, make sure the docks are safe so that we don't have an accident like we did down at Mallory Square, where the man was loading or unloading and the forklift driver, the thing broke off and he went into the water, and I had to go get help. And I also am a lifeguard, so I dove in and got him out. He would have drowned. We have to make sure that everything is safe and that we're ready so no one gets hurt, no one drowns, no one gets sick. And if we have these cruise ships, let's put a doctor's office on them and have some nurses there too, please. I will volunteer my time. And I've had all the shots. They made me deathly sick. If that's what this is all about, get the shots, because the second one almost took me. It was horrible. And so whatever you decide, it's up to you. But I know of 2 people that lost their jobs out of 33 people when they stopped the cruise ships. And they were guards down there. They were watchmen, days and nights. Family people lost their jobs. The ships were gone. Thank you.
We have Bart and then Stuart Andrews.
Thank you. Bart Smith on behalf of Pier B Development Corp. We submitted a letter, and it was submitted late, so I'm just going to read it into the record. I apologize. I cut a family vacation short and flew back today to be here. We wanted to provide you with some factual background that relates to Pier B. Pursuant to the Truman Annex Development Order adopted in March 1988 until 1994, the City of Key West owned the option to develop, operate, and control a cruise port at Pier B. This original development order was negotiated between the developer, the State of Florida, and the City of Key West. For 6 years and through multiple amendments to the development order, the City held fast to this option. In 1993, the City saw the growth in income potential to the City revenues with the rapidly growing interest in cruise ship tourism. The increased size and carrying capacity of modern cruise ship was rendering Mallory Square near obsolete and unsafe. Lacking the funds to make the necessary infrastructure investment necessary to act on the cruise ship port option, the City Commission asked the developer to assume the responsibility and expense to improve and expand the existing Pier B. This is documented in Resolution 93-405, adopting the terms of the development, the Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions. Along with that agreement came a series of specific requirements placed upon the developer for the pier improvements, cruise port operation, and payment of 25% of all disembarkation fees to the City. Before releasing the option, the City required the developer, at the developer's expense, make multiple immediate improvements to the pier, releasing the option only after substantial completion of same in early 1994. In 1999, the Pier B Development Corp. invested millions of dollars to strengthen and expand Pier B. In the build-out agreement for Truman Annex adopted by the State of Florida, the City of Key West, and the developer, the completion of the Pier B expansion was specifically acknowledged and sanctioned as a vested right. This agreement was adopted at Resolution 99-457. Each of the cited facts above, the adopted development order, development agreements, resolution, and the 1999 build-out agreement occurred in public hearings where the legislative process determined the property rights to be granted and or denied. For almost 25 years, the City has collected the disembarkation payments, totaling over $27 million in pure revenue. To date, the Pier B operators have invested millions in improvements, capital, and other efforts to support cruise ship tourism in Key West. To date, when Pier B was developed, I'm going to have to skip because you want to keep this meeting moving. When Pier B was developed and expanded, it was a sole functioning cruise ship berth in Key West. The addition of the Mole Pier as a cruise port and the expansion of Mallory Pier occurred well after Pier B was improved. The City of Key West can, if it determines it to be in the best interest of its citizens, greatly reduce the total number of cruise ship passengers and ships by ceasing operations at the Mole Pier and Mallory Square. We ask the Commission to please review the facts and then take into consideration all that we have ever done is exactly what the City required us to do. We hope and expect the City to continue to honor the agreement and are willing to meet with the City on the issues. Thank you in advance for your attention to this matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have Stuart and then Rita Troxel.
Hello, I'm Stuart Andrews, 2110 Staples Avenue, Key West. Thank you for taking our talk. I came to Key West in 1978 as 20 years old, and I grew up here. Pier B was empty. Truman Annex was run by the city, old Navy property. I served as a fireman, raised my family here, bought my first boat in like 1980. The water was beautiful. There was no cruise ships. There wasn't much turbulence. Things have changed. I believe that the cruise ship industry was vital in the beginning, and it just became too big. And I believe these actions that we voted on to limit the cruise ship activity would make our environment much healthier and would not be a detriment to our business community. Right now, this year, our business community is doing very well. It's been over a year that cruise ships have not been allowed here. And I believe that what the public wants is limits on this industry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Rita and then Jamie Mattingly.
Madam Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Rita Troxel, and there's so much I could say, but I will stick it to 2 points. There is one living coral reef in North America. It happens to be ours. We are the stewards of that reef. I just can't imagine why we wouldn't want to do our best to care for it. The tourists come for the coral reef. They're not coming for the bars. They're coming for the coral reef, the waters, the beauty, the culture of Key West. The most important point is that this is a democracy. We had a vote. This is our right as a people of the United States of America, is to have a legal vote and have it respected. So I ask that all of you respect the vote from November. Thank you very much.
We have Jamie and then Christopher. I'm sorry, I can't read this name. It begins with an M. Okay.
It'll be Massacott.
Okay.
Go ahead. Okay. Thank you guys for allowing me to speak here today and for calling this meeting in the first place. My name is Jamie Mattingly. I own a business in Key West. I own a digital market, or I founded a digital market agency with Chris Massacott, with the guy with the name's too hard to say. Our clients rely on tourism. So tourism very much affects my business, even though I don't directly sell anything to them. I can tell you that we have had an enormous amount of success since the vote. Key West business is thriving. I don't think I have to tell any of you guys that. Personally, we have had a client who reached out actually as soon as the vote passed. He was worried that cruise ships were going to take, that he was going to take a hit because of this vote, so he decided to adapt and to go into marketing. Since January, month over month, he has been breaking his own records for sales. I don't think that he's alone in this. I think that most businesses down here are doing very well. The key is you have to adapt to survive. We're not just doing this for no reason. We're doing this to save the environment. Businesses will follow. My husband's business, Washed Up Key West, is about to sign a lease in the old Coast Guard building. I've been looking for a place to open a downtown storefront for over 10 years. And I can tell you, since this vote, the people in the Coast Guard building, the owners, many of whom were against this vote, kicked out all the $5 t-shirt shops and have since invited all local artists. So the old Coast Guard building will soon be all Key West artists. This is the direction we want Key West to go. adapt to survive. And lastly, I personally believe that people get into politics for two very different reasons. The first one is very honorable. They get into politics because they want to serve and they want to do the most good that they can do. The second reason is they go in because of a corrupt desire for power. And people who go in for that reason will do anything that they have to do to retain their seat or to go on to the next level. I personally don't think that any of you guys are here for power. I truly believe that all of you are here to do good for our community. I know it. I see it in the work that you do week over week for us. And I appreciate you, so I say thank you for that. I do think that you guys are all excited to be the heroes of this story. I consider the legacy that you guys are leaving your kids, the ones that'll live on far past your well-being, your alive life, your living self. We will be telling stories about how we passed this, how the corruption of our governor overturned it, but then our city commissioners and mayor came in and saved us. We will be talking about this for the next 100 years. Thank you, guys. Let's do the right thing.
All right, we have Christopher and then Jack Anderson.
Okay,
Yeah, I
did we
knew I
all
should have put
forget
my
the
name.
rule about not clapping?
I knew I should have put my name before Jamie's, but my name is Chris Massicott. I live at 1615 Laird Street. I just want to say to start that I agree with Mr. Linville's comments about the travesty that happened up in Tallahassee. I watched that meeting. I watched how everybody's voice was shut down, how they just rammed that legislation through. I've been in political consulting for 25 years, and I've never seen anything like that. And it was just nothing but a naked power grab. And it is something that we as a city need to fight back and to really stand up for our own voters and our own people. But I do want to tell a quick personal story because I'm fairly new to Key West. I've only been here for a few years. But my first experience in Key West was on a cruise ship in 2006. I vowed to never return because I don't know if anybody's come in on a cruise ship, but it's like a cattle running through it. And I barely made it to the Hemingway house in time for my quick tour. And then I had to walk back, and that was it. And that was my experience of Key West. I'm like, well, that was that. I'm not going to come back. I was able to come back for somebody's birthday party who really wanted me to join, so I did. And then finally, I came back and spent a few weeks here, like a lot of visitors do to Key West, and they come and they spend money. And that's when I fell in love with the city, and I woke up one day and I said, I'm not going back. I come from Washington, D.C. And yeah, there's a real reason why I wouldn't want to come back to that. But the experience, when I started my business with Jamie, the experience, and people ask me, why would you want to do that? Like, you've got a successful business in Washington. And I said, because I love the tourism industry. I want to learn about the tourism industry. And I want to be part of the community that makes every visitor's experience in Key West the best that it possibly can be. And so that's what I want to be a part of. And when I got the opportunity to work on this referendum, that affecting real change and affecting, preserving what we have that cannot be, that cannot be revived once it's dead, our coral reef, was something that was really important to me. So thank you very much. And please do the right thing.
Okay, we have Jack and then Ben Harrison.
Jack Anderson, 1109 Varela Street. I just want to say thanks to you guys for convening the special meeting. This is great that we actually get to have our voices heard. I think that I just want to say that I'd like to add my voice to the chorus who are looking for you guys to enact ordinances that can work to either find loopholes or deficiencies in the state preemption bills, and either that or raising disembarkation fees or any other legal levers of power to make this work. But whatever it is, we need to pass legislation now. And I just want to not expand, but just agree with what has been said already, excuse me, that at the end of the day, if everybody looks past the self-interest on both sides, mine included, there's one simple fact. The local community voted overwhelmingly to pass the 3 referenda. Those unhappy with that outcome are welcome to draft a petition of their own and attempt to overturn the results through another free and fair election. That's how Madisonian democracy works. However, in the meantime, the results of the last election the results of the last election clearly indicate the will of the people, and we should not, there's no reason to delay or discuss anymore. We just need to pass some legislation now. I'm so sorry. dry throat. Anyway, we need to pass legislation now. Time is of the essence. The ships have started sailing. So thank you for your time. Sorry for my dry throat.
Okay, we have Ben and then Ross Bocek.
Thank you very much, Mayor and City Commissioners, for meeting with us today. Democratically speaking, the people have voted. The overwhelming people in Key West want to pass this cleaner, safer ships, and I personally do too. From the beginning, this thing's been really smelly. You know, first they were going to regulate all the ports in the state. Well, then no other port wanted to be regulated, and it was just us. And that may have had something to do with $1 million contribution. There have been coincidences, and the whole thing has really been pretty stinky. And I applaud you, and I hope that you will make the decision that supports the people of Key West, and thank you very much.
We have Ben, and then, I'm sorry, Ross and Doug Kilpatrick.
Thank you. First, thank you very much, whoever pronounced my name correctly. No one ever does that. My name is Ross Busek. I live on a sailboat in Marathon, but depending on what I got to do for work and the winds, I move back and forth between here and there. I'm a scientist by trade. I got my PhD at Florida International University in Fisheries Science. And I'd just like to speak on a few issues, 3 issues really, regarding cruise ships and what I see from my training and background. And the first is when we think about marine resources, regardless of what it is, moderation is always the key. When you have too much use, too much access, often the resource degrades. And what it seems like prior to COVID, the amount of cruise ships were coming were overcapacity, were overuse. The second point I want to bring up is the Lower Keys tarpon fishery. That is the lifeblood of many people here, and it's getting worse. And as a scientist, I have a hard time ignoring the correlation between their stories and the change in the fishery and greater increases in marine use and the greater upward tick in cruise ship capacity as it's changed through the years. And third, I think a point a lot of people are forgetting about is just risk. I'm sure the harbor pilots are very good at their jobs, but it just takes one mistake for a cruise ship to run into the reef, and then not only is there going to be extreme environmental consequences, the cost of fixing that, but also the direct, the spillover effects to the perception of the Keys and the tourist industry in general. I think, going back to moderation, I think what the Safer, Cleaner Cruise Ships guys present is a very good compromise, and it seems like it'd be a sustainable outcome of this. I mean, if it was up to me and I was making decisions, I'd say ban them all, but it's not me, and I appreciate what you guys are doing, and it's really cool to see policymakers stick up for a cause like this. So, thank you.
Okay, Doug, and then Will Benson.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name's Doug Kilpatrick. I live on Sugarloaf Key, but my business is registered in Key West. I don't think there's a single person in this room whose grandparents, parents, or themselves moved here because they love cruise ships. They moved here for clean water, live coral reefs, and a beautiful environment and a great community. The cruise ships have not benefited us on any of that. I think it's time that you represent the people and keep them from coming in, the big ships. If it were up to me, I too would love to see them all gone. But what a lot of people may not realize in this room is that as fishing guides, we depend on healthy corals, live bottom. The cruise ships, when they come up and silt the bottom, they do not allow the bottom to heal. The bottom's been dredged in Key West before. It still hasn't healed. It needs to heal. Every time it gets silted up, it takes us a step backwards. And it's going out to the reefs. It's just not doing us any good. Fish have to live over live bottom. We've already seen our fishery degrade. And lots of tarpon migrate up to Bia Honda Bridge, Channel 2, Channel 5, 7 Mile Bridge, they're not dredged. They haven't had siltation all the time, tearing up the bottom. So, and that being said, here we are trying to replace corals. We're trying to grow coral to heal, but we're still allowing cruise ships to come in and silt up the bottom and ruin the efforts of raising coral and planting it. It doesn't make any sense. So please, represent the people. The people of Key West have voted on it. I think it's a no-brainer. It's your job to represent people. So please do that. Thank you very much.
So we have Will and then Rick Bowiger.
Good evening, Commission. Captain Will Benson. I'm one of the members of the Cleaner, Safer Ships. I'm also representative of the Lower Keys Guides Association on the National Marine Sanctuary Advisory Council. And we've heard from businesses, who have said that they're suffering, the cruise ships aren't coming. Let's remember that it wasn't the vote that did that, it was a pandemic. And what it did is it showed us, what our potential could be without those cruise ships. It was amazing for me because I never thought that we ever could see that day. And for a decade, probably the majority of my professional fishing career, I've watched, as Doug articulated, a bottom that's bleeding. Every time one of those cruise ships comes through, that bottom bleeds. And we have one of the best fishing spots in the world. And we've watched it decline, and we, as fishing guides, have been sitting there watching our businesses decline and the threat that we face of losing what Ben Harrison told me on the way in, which is the golden goose. This is what it is, guys. We're out there every single day. The Keys, it's about water. It's about the health of that coral reef. That's why we're here. That's what makes this place special. And we have to do every single thing that we can to shepherd and protect that. That's why we're having contentious arguments over at the sanctuary when we talk about this stuff. It's been heated. We all know that there's an issue. And we're pointing and telling you guys that this is an issue. That's why the voters have spoken up. 60%, an overwhelming majority, 80% when it came to the environmental part. Look, I love this place. I'm a proud conch. I grew up here. I've seen the change. And I've decided to fight for what I thought the community wanted. And you know what? They did want it. And they spoke resoundingly. And I think it's time for all of us to put on our Key West baseball hats and sit here and say, you know what? We got preempted by the governor, but this is our community. This is what we depend on. And right now, guys, your leadership is more important than anything. We need our best effort to protect this place. We need our best effort to shepherd and care for this environment and this community moving forward. So with that, I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you guys for calling this meeting, taking the time to listen again and again to the voices. And even though some of us, maybe disagree, we all love this place. And we had a vote, and we know where the numbers are. We know what happened. And so I encourage you guys to find the leadership to care and protect our community and resources like the reef. Thank you very much.
We have Rick. We have Rick and then Stephen Nahalia.
Mayor and Commissioners, I'm Rick Betcher, 1402 Olivia in Key West. I'm here primarily to address the very general concern that our vote has been taken away from us. And there is like the worry that, oh my God, legally they've done an end run around us. And I know that our very able city attorney has my tax dollars in mind when he is generally a watchdog to make sure that we do not get embroiled in expensive and fruitless lawsuits. Well, I'm here to tell you that I'm very confident not only that we will have no problems in enacting the will of the people, but that the other side has a great deal to fear from anything we might do during this. There are some legal issues in the way that the invidious statute was crafted, some tricky little things on in versus pursuant to. But the main thing is that that statute does not prohibit people from using their brains and using their science on this issue. If, as we said, in the year of vigorous debate and disagreement, what we have done is learn a great deal about the science from scientists, from people who work the reef, from general citizens. We have learned, you have learned. All it is upon you now to do is craft a statute that takes what we have learned. And this is not Arlo's thing. Arlo is one person in 1,000 people who've been involved in this and who have informed this process. The main thing that the other side has to worry is that if they file a lawsuit, that we can file a countersuit. And a countersuit would take into account what are called negative externalities. What we call is that they are making money off of killing our reef. In addition to that, there are things like the cost that the city incurs. Is that a countersuit would actually then set a precedent that could apply generally to cruise ship enterprises, not only here in the States, but around the world. The other side does not want to step into those muddy waters. They would fear it. Any lawyer who would counsel them to that would be acting irresponsibly. If we need more legal help, I'm pretty sure I could enlist some of my fellow Yale Law School alumni to address this issue pro bono. It would be exciting. Finally, the loss of employees. Just drive by poor old Popeyes up there, which is begging to get people to work. Anybody who loses a job due to not as many people getting cheap beers on Duval, there are plenty of jobs around here. Finally, we're not allowed to applaud you, but what we are seeing here, this is the kind of United States government that I was fighting for in the 70s. Thank you so much.
We have Stephen and then Michael Halpern.
Thank you very much, City Commissioners, Madam Mayor. My name is Stephen Nikela, 2907 Patterson Avenue. I am a business owner down here, run the Wendy's down in Key West, and I'm going to be speaking in favor of cruise ships and tourism tonight. From the beginning, Cleaner, Safer Ships has been opportunistic in how they've represented these referendums and the timeline it's rolled out. People were afraid of COVID. It was at the same time Diamond Princess was getting COVID cases and the world was clamoring. We were in very severely economic and disruptive times. I've spoken to members of Cleaner, Safer Ships asking them to quantify why they believe cruise ship traffic isn't significant on the island and what the environmental impact is be. I've asked for studies. The only thing I've gotten from the organization is a 2005 study which claims that tourists on cruise ships spend about $35 per passenger. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $48. It also accounts for 10% of Key West GDP, according to the 05 study. The same study also states that cruise ships do not have quite the impact on the reef system that it's been propagated that they do. I'd like to see more studies. I'd like to know that if there is significant impacts to the reef, I want to know. But this whole drive to get tourists out of Key West, to get the cruise ships out of Key West, has been purely emotional. I'm here speaking not only on behalf of business owners downtown, but also for the working class that relies on downtown tourism. A lot of the people here have been here for many generations, and I sympathize. My family's been here since the 90s. But my generation, the millennial generation, has a very hard time living on this island when every time tourists are attacked, when we can't get tourists down, when bartending positions are at stake, serving positions, all my friends struggle just to pay the rent. This isn't an easy place to live. It's not an easy place to have a family. We don't roll cigars anymore. We don't sponge anymore. Our bread and butter is tourism. When we keep going after tourists and we're privileged enough to say we need more artwork, which costs thousands and thousands of dollars, that's not something the working class individual wants to hear. Not many people in my generation are here tonight because it's 5 o'clock on a Monday. My wife, a bartender, is working at her resort. I have friends at bars that are working. Environmentalism is important. We as a community need to be loving and caring and good caretakers of our environment. But when we go after the tourism, like we have time and time again, we have to understand that the economic environment that we're in is also just as precious and precarious. So I encourage you, look at the data. Let's find out what's really going on here. But I haven't been convinced that the cruise ships are really such a big cause of the destruction of the reef. I'm open-minded. I want to know. But from what I've seen and from all the business owners I've spoken to downtown, I can tell you personally that when cruise ships are here, we have more people working. We're making more money. There's more money in the local economy. So this cannot come from an emotional place. We have to look at this the same way a mineralogist looks at a rock and be objective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, after Michael, we're going to go to 2 people on Zoom. So if you're on Zoom and signed up, please be prepared to unmute yourself. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Commission. I crossed my first picket line in the early 1960s when they integrated my junior high school in New York City, and they didn't want, the picketers did not want those people coming into our schools and our public buildings. In the 1970s, I arrived in Key West as a public defender and civil rights attorney and joined as counsel for the NAACP. I then later joined with the NAACP in moving for single-member districts, and I drafted the litigation and drafted the legislation that created this single-member districting so there would be black representation in our city commission, and there has been black representation since. I lived my life as a civil rights lawyer, and I will continue that until my days end as an attorney. My issue is not the cruise ships. My issue is the civil rights matter of not wanting people who don't spend enough money and not wanting people coming into our community because they are on the less economically advantaged cruise ships. They're not on the $10,000 a week small cruise ships. They're on the affordable big cruise ships that are barred. And by the way, Disney is barred under the referendum, and they had an A-rated environmental rating. Branson's Voyager ships are beyond A-rated, and they're barred under the terms of the referendum. But please understand, when you tell groups of people that are lower income and spend less money that you don't want them in our community, it stands against everything one human family stands for. I have been, since raising the issue of equal rights for all people of all income to enter in Key West, I've been attacked personally on Facebook, in newspapers, in magazines, but not one time did anyone provide an answer to how the people who now get to visit Key West on the lower price cruise ships, if you bar them, if you bar the big cruise ships, how these people will now be able to enter Key West when hotel rooms at the Fairfield Inn are going for $500 a night and airline tickets are $1,200. I am standing before you, a minority of 1 or 2 in this vast sea of faces, but not one person has offered a plan how the economically disadvantaged can become visitors in Key West. And that's what I stand here for. Thank you.
Okay. Janet Hartwell is on Zoom. Can you unmute yourself, Janet? And I'm going to let you know when 3 minutes are up. And Janet, while we're going to skip over you and go to Evan Haskell, and then we'll come back to you. Again, Evan, I'm going to let you know when your 3 minutes have expired. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. Thank you. My name is Evan Haskell. I live at 3812 Flagler Avenue. I won't take too much time this evening as most of what I want to say has already been said resoundingly by many of the speakers before me. I share Nathaniel's fears regarding our democratic process and what the people of Key West have spoken resoundingly for. To remind the folks in City Hall today and my esteemed commissioners on the dais there, what the people did vote for overwhelmingly was to prohibit cruise ships carrying more than 1,300 people to limit cruise ship disembarkation to 1,500 people per day, and to give priority to cruise ships with better environmental and public health records. 3 fairly simple propositions, all passed overwhelmingly, can still be replicated by the City Commission. That is what I believe everybody in the room is looking to see happen this evening. Well, if not this evening, that's the direction that we move into through the ordinance process. So, yes, again, sharing Nathaniel's fears of what is our democratic process for, if when you have a vote, that will is not carried out. Should be very simple. It seems that on the other side of it, the only fear is of a lawsuit, a threat that's been dished for over a year now. As many other speakers have said, those threats of lawsuits are really nothing more than threats. So with that, I thank you all for listening to our voices this evening, and I encourage to listen to the voice of the people and to enact these compromise limits that have already been overwhelmingly approved. Thank you.
We're going to come back to Janet. I have CC Carew on Zoom, and I'll let you know when your 3 minutes are up.
Thank you. My husband Bob and I live in Key Colony Beach. Bob is a pilot and flies frequently for the Coast Guard Auxiliary, and notices when they notice the 2 pilots and observer that are in the air have noticed a extreme difference in the water quality during COVID when no cruise ships were coming in, and we feel strongly that the big cruise ships would be a detriment. We're all for growing economy and jobs in Key West. And do you have anything to add? That's all. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Okay, and now we have Janet Hartwell.
Hi, I'm Janet Hartwell. I live at 1017 Angela Street. Okay, I'm not going to indulge in romantic rhetoric about Key West the way it used to be. There is no going back. However, a balance can be achieved if we look at the facts. I can speak from experience on this subject as a person who has been a passenger many times on many different cruise lines and to many ports of call since the late 1970s. One thing remains constant. If the port doesn't control the cruise ship traffic, the town over time deteriorates. The quality of life for most of the residents, businesses, and workers suffers. Long-stay visitors decline as the cruise ship traffic increases. The only people making money are the businesses that service the cruise trade. The ship's agency, which is responsible for piloting the ships into and out of the port and processing the passengers and crew. The larger the ship, the more money they earn, for size and for passenger load. Tour and transportation business. Again, larger ships means more revenue. Souvenir shops, and a few bars and restaurants. The vast majority of our businesses depend almost entirely on long-stay visitors. It is counterintuitive that we would drive them out by the intense focus we are placing on cruise ships, which not only despoil the beauty and historical value of our islands, but are endangering our surrounding waters and our reef. Some of these ships have been cited more than once for dumping offshore and falsifying their logs. Many of us can bear witness to the return of the waters we remember pre-cruise ship overload after only a month or two of cessation. Mother Nature has a tremendous ability to heal herself, but not if we continue to batter her relentlessly. Despoiled waters kill the reef, a dead reef kills the fishing and charter boat industries, and what long-term visitor or resident wants to swim or boat in polluted waters? The referendums we passed overwhelmingly, which is a testament to the point that only a few businesses actually profit from the ships, do not suggest complete cessation of cruise ships, only reasonable limits. Those limits will not put any cruise-related business out of business. They will dial down their profits a bit, but they will survive just fine. And the rest of us, the majority of us, who pay taxes and make use of our local businesses and restaurants year-round, and our long-term visitors will be able to enjoy our island again. The question before you, Mayor Johnston and Commissioners Weekly, Davila, Hoffman, Hoover, Wardlow, and Lopez. Are you ready to sacrifice the quality of life, the health and beauty of our island, and the overwhelming will of the majority to appease a few businesses? Please remember, you are not putting them out of business. You are simply doing your job of representing all of us, not just a moneyed few.
Ms. Hartwell, your time has expired. Thank you.
I'm done.
Thanks. Okay, we have one more person signed up on Zoom. It's Mark, and again, I'll let you know when your 3 minutes have expired.
It's Mark Embuza, 815 White Street. Home rule. So what this is, the primary thing, this is home rule. It's imperative that the city fights up against this. It's going to set a precedent that if anyone doesn't like the rules that the city has put in place, it can be challenged at a state level, including possibility something like transient licenses. We already have a housing problem, so let's not open that door. The thing about this, which is most disconcerting, is that the cruise ship industry and those that are relying on it this is basically a quasi-private industry. Why? Cruise ships rely on the resources of our community and taxpayers to pay for and invest in the infrastructure to bring these people down here. Therefore, for those that want these referendums to fail by the wayside, you're asking the whole community that's already contributing to a business entity to make money to relinquish something. That in itself is not fair. On top of that, this is all diversionary tactics to talk about the reality. You got people coming up here right now they're speaking to businesses and speaking on behalf of businesses. Which businesses? I run a business group down over here, and I'm not speaking on my business group's behalf right now, but who are you talking to? A few handful of business down in Lower Duval? These ships haven't been here for 16 months. This seems, if you haven't figured out a way to make a living without the cruise ships here right now, you've already failed. You've gone out of business already. Now, these referendums are hitting a middle ground of still bringing cruise ships down here, just doing it differently. So the people have spoken. That's it. End of story. People win. People lose. That's it. It's time to move forward. So many people are quoting what happened 40 years ago and all. Man progresses by moving forward. Okay? If you fail to move forward and to adapt to the changes that are in front of you now, you're going to fail. That's where we're at this critical point. We've learned to adapt as a community, as a business community right now. And what was put forth on that referendum was a moderate balance to give a little better quality of life for the citizens that live here, that are also consumers in our community, to the demands of the tourists that are coming down here. So I hope you guys all stand by your guns, and we really appreciate everything you've done. Thank you so much.
Okay, and someone has just signed up. I think her name is Linda Wheeler. You'll have 3 minutes, Linda.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Linda Wheeler, and I live at 1213 White Street. My husband and I have lived here in Key West and have lived and worked here for 47 years. I understood that tonight's hearing, the special meeting, which I appreciate the commissioner's calling, was so that we could hear from the city attorney his opinion or the opinions of others about the legal ramifications of us being allowed as a commission. We have been defeated by this end run. I couldn't agree more, but the facts are that the state legislature has prohibited the voters of this town from having a voice directly by direct ballot. And I understood that the point of this would be for there to be legal opinions about whether the city commission, as a city commission, had the right to enact similar provisions. We, of course, as part of the Safer, Cleaner Ships, is asking for the same language because it has already been upheld legally in several different contests. And I think that is at the issue of what we should discuss. I don't know if Mr. Smith is intending to address the commission and the public about that, but if you read the full text of the law that was just signed by Governor DeSantis, If the city commission doesn't have the right, because of that preemption, to have any control over its owner harbors, fasten your seatbelt. We're in for some real problems. The way this thing is written, it doesn't even allow by referendum, it doesn't allow for us even to decide what kind of cargo comes in here or the volume of it, let alone how many passengers, which means what could happen? I mean, theoretically, we could have nuclear waste coming in here. We don't have any power to regulate these things. This comes under safety, health, and welfare. And certainly the number of passengers that are being pushed off of these cruise ships is too many for the community to digest or adequately protect. And it's certainly too many for visitors to enjoy a good experience. I agree with Michael Halpern that there needs to be a tourism in this town. It doesn't have to, and it has been, and the cruise ship passengers should be welcome as one of the methods of enjoying our city, but it shouldn't be unbridled populations that our little community is simply unable to handle. Medically, physically, police protection, fire protection, all of the other things. So I'd really like to hear from the city attorney about those issues. My opinion, I am an attorney in Key West, although I am not a land use attorney, is that the city of commission certainly retains the right to make decisions about what is in the best interest of this community for health, public welfare, its environment, the protection of its resources, and all of those things, as so many speakers have said very adequately, have been addressed. And certainly this commission could enact as an ordinance. It doesn't have the long permanence that we had by the referendum. It may be changed if they decide to have different commissioners next year.
Ms. Wheeler?
But the idea is that you do have the power now to enact those three restrictions, which are not a ban on cruise ships. It's certainly just a restriction.
Linda?
Thank you. Yes.
Your time is up.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
That's it. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was Michael. Oh. After Michael? Oh. Come on up.
Hey guys, my name is Brandon Sear. I'm a fishing guide down here in Key West. I thought we weren't having to do that anymore. I apologize. My name is Brandon Sear. I'm a fishing guide here in Key West. I'm fourth generation in Key West, and my son and daughter are now fifth. I'm shaking right now because I'm so infuriated. I heard a gentleman earlier speak about emotions. This is my home. My grandparents, my children, my entire livelihood revolves around the ecosystem of this island. And for generations, I've been told stories about how good it used to be. For once we have a chance to turn that around. Please don't make this a back in the day story to my children that I have to tell them about how we didn't win and we didn't do what was right and what was voted for by the people. This is our voice. Please let it be heard. We beg you as a community, do the right thing. Thank you so much. Also, I would like to add that I come from a low-income family. Nobody decides they want to be a fishing guide to be a millionaire. I graduated from Key West High School. I worked 2 jobs from sunrise to sunset while having a small child. But I didn't complain. That's the price of paradise. I took pride in the fact that I was able to rent down here and worked for it. That is part of being one human family of Key West. So, everywhere I go around the city, I see for hire on almost every single window. You're talking about, the gentleman I heard talk about the bicycles. He let go 13 people. What happens if we lose our reef? You're talking about an entire community. I would be more than happy to help that gentleman and take his employees around to different places that are asking for jobs. This is our future, our children's future. Grandchildren, please. This is emotional because this is the rest of our lives. Thank you so much.
I think we're done. Yeah.
Okay, first and foremost, thank you all. You were very respectful of people's time and of each other, and we truly appreciate it. Also, thank you for all of your emails. I'm sure I speak for all of my commissioners to say that we have read every one of them. They were all poignant. They all had wonderful points. I do also want to point off that Commissioner Lopez is in the hospital this evening, or he would be here joining us. And I think we've got Commissioner Kaufman now on Zoom. So what we are going to do is we are now going to talk about what we do next. And yes, to Linda Wheeler's question, we are going to talk to our city attorney, and we're going to get some opinions. So with that, at the end of the day, I do want you to know that it is the 7 of us who are at the top of the organizational chart. So the 7 of us will be giving direction to the city attorney and to the city manager at the end of our discussion to move forward on this. So with that, commissioners, discussion?
Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor.
Yes, Commissioner Wardlow?
I had the same thing that probably Linda had, and I wanted to hear from Sean before we got started. And the other thing I wanted you to do was exactly on the preemption. What is our rights from the governor's preemption signing?
All right, first I'll address what the governor signed in that transportation bill. He prohibited an ordinance enacted via a referendum or initiative, in addition to the referendums that were passed. So you as a city commission maintain the power to pass ordinances with respect to these issues. That's not to say whatever you pass, if you pass something, isn't preempted next year by the legislature again. So you do have the power to pass an ordinance.
Could we make the ordinance as written, or is there changes to the ordinance?
Now I'm going to be very guarded in what I say to you tonight, because chances are it's going to come back against the city at some point in time. And I'll say the same thing I said to you 15 years ago when I took this job. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear, okay? I believe you as a city commission have the power over your own ports and those that you control, which are the Outer Mole, via lease. Again, the Navy owns that property via lease, and Mallory that you own. Pier B, as referenced by one of the speakers tonight, and I believe a council for the Safer, Cleaner cruise ships, has an agreement with the city that we've availed ourselves of for the past since 1994. That agreement had a term of 21 years. It renews every 10 years unless both parties disavow that agreement. My problem from a legal perspective is how you deal with that private property that you've accepted 25% of the revenues from for the last 30 plus years. That's my problem. You have control over those ports that you occupy. Now, I don't recommend you take any action by resolution. If you take action, it is via ordinance. I believe if you take action, you have to consider whether or not the ordinance that you enact affects land. It affects land, then there's a different process that you go by. If you enact an ordinance, for example, that directs the city manager and me and the city in general not to schedule cruise ships, I don't think that necessarily affects land. So the first question is the type of ordinance, if any, you wish to enact. Then I will go back and look at whether or not that affects land. And it depends upon how it's written.
Okay, so you're saying they could dock at the pier, but we could stop them from coming on land, like?
On your properties that you control, Mallory and the Outer Mole at present.
Okay.
You just do not schedule at those ports.
Okay.
None. Again, Pier B is a different animal because it is a private cruise port, and I'm not sure that there's another private cruise port in the state. It's certainly an issue. If the commission directs me, I will look at. But again, the agreement you have with that cruise port is markedly different than either of the ports you control.
And when does that lease expire?
2005, I believe you look at the agreement again, but the way it's written, both sides have to agree to cancel that. It's an agreement that they can charge no less at Pier B than we charge at the Outer Mole. There's some things that can be done with respect to disembarkation fees with respect to Mallory. But you have to look at what your charge is and relate it back to what the impact of the cruise passengers are. We've done that we've done that a few years ago, but you took into account the Outer Mole and Mallory. We take revenue from Pier B not to put back into the cruise ships. It has a different regulation, we'll say. You allowed them to construct a cruise port. That's why they're giving you 25% of the revenue. It's not like Mallory where you're restricted by a host of federal regulations to put that back into to cruise operations.
Right.
Say, for example, you take the 25% from Pier B and you put it directly into water quality issues. You know, I've heard numerous times tonight the issue is water quality. So, again, I will take the direction of the commission. I will come back to you with an ordinance should you so desire, but I'm going to tell you what ordinances I think are going to get us sued. And I think Pier B sues us. I don't think it's a threat. I think it's legitimate. And I don't think it's a Harris Act claim. I think it's a breach of contract claim and an interstate commerce claim, which we heard of tonight.
Okay.
And that's what I'm looking for, is your advice for this. And the last thing is, or Patty may be able to answer, have you all heard from any of the smaller cruise ships that would want to make Key West their port? Or Sean, or?
I have not at this point, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Sean, I have a couple questions. The first one is with the agreement, the 21-year agreement that self-renews every 10 years unless both parties agree to it. How did we ever get into a contract like that?
No, you'd have to ask your counsel 30-plus years ago, and I'm not quite sure who that was. I know that the author of that agreement was the late Jim Hendrick.
Okay. There has got to be a way to modify that agreement. I mean, we're not.
I looked at that, and here's the we have to negotiate.
Right.
There's no doubt about that. But the problem I keep coming back to is we've taken the benefits of that agreement for a number of years, and that's a problem. But again, it doesn't stop us from negotiating. I think one of the speakers tonight talked about some sort of compromise. The authors of the referendum said there was a compromise in coming up with the limits that they have. So, I don't know what the answer is.
Okay.
I don't.
The whole referendum is looking for balance and moderation. It has to impact Pier B. Otherwise, we don't have balance and moderation. I mean, it just doesn't exist. So, so I think our charge for you and the legal department is to figure out how we get out of that contract.
We pay. Okay.
I don't think I heard your answer.
Oh, the answer is we pay.
We what?
Pay.
Okay. All right. Well, there's an option on the table. Okay. Commissioners?
Yep, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
If I pardon me. Sean, a couple of things. That agreement was done over 30 years ago. A lot of things have changed since then. At the time when the agreement was entered into, it was to build an economy. That economy has been built. It was successful. Okay. Now it is causing an impact on the quality of life of our residents, as well as the quality of life to the people that come down to visit. How many times have we, all of us up here probably have, received emails from people that say, it's too crowded, we can't come there anymore. We don't want to come to Key West any longer because we can't go down to Wall Street, we can't go to different places
because of the number of people that are on the streets. When you get 3 cruise ships in here, you know, you're looking at, I don't know, 10, 12,000 people at one time that could be on our streets. We've got 63% of our population, voting population, that said enough is enough. We have to have their backs. We have to stand here and find a way in which we can defend that referendum question that was passed. And we've got to tell the state of Florida, you can preempt us all we want. We're going to keep coming back with ordinances or resolutions in a way that we can get what our constituents want. The people that brought this forward, they have nothing to do with Monroe County or the city of Key West. They're up in the middle of the state somewhere who really doesn't care other than seeing some money go into their coffers for political action committees. You know, enough is enough. We have to stand up for the constituency of the 63% of this community who we all represent, because we cannot turn our backs on it. And whatever it takes, we have to find a way of doing it. I don't know anything about your job. You don't know anything about meat cutting, so we can we can understand that. But I'm sure that with your legal knowledge and your legal staff that you have, you can research this more and more until you can find a way. It may not happen overnight, but we have to take that first step. So I'm hearing from the mayor and hopefully the other commissioners that we want something done. Just find a way of doing it.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Weekly. And I want to make sure Commissioner Davila and Commissioner Kaufman and Commissioner Hoover get an opportunity. And I would just like to expand on what Commissioner, what's your name?
Weekly.
Sorry, it's been a long day.
I'm a lot older. She's got memory loss.
Just said. But I think also, you know, this is an extraordinary ask of you. But you are one of the brightest attorneys that I have ever seen. And I believe that the City Commission would certainly be willing to get you legal assistance. I mean, if we needed to head out to some specialty areas that could help you bring back a defensible ordinance for us to defend these 3 referendums. So with that, Commissioner Davila.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I just wanted to kind of echo what Commissioner Weekly said. And I think this all comes down to representative democracy and home rule. I think it's plain and simple in that respect. But without getting into all of the legal arguments, I look at this plainly and simply as the opening that was created in the Senate bill that was signed by the governor allows the commission to pass that ordinance. Should the commission pass an ordinance that is similarly situated as the referendum was, then we're in the same position we would have been had the legislature never preempted the city of Key West. So that would be, or similar, and that's other than that it wouldn't be in our charter, but it's in our ordinance. So we're in the same position that we would have been. I don't see what, had the legislature not preempted us, that referendum would be in our charter, and we would be abiding by that referendum, and we'd still have right now the threat of the lawsuit or the threat of the legislature doing something next legislative session. That won't change should the commission pass an ordinance or ordinances that do the same thing that the referendum does, as long as we have the same legislative intent with that ordinance that would muster, and you can craft that.
Right.
So that's my position. I don't see any difference that if we do it, the door's open, we can pass an ordinance that has the same effect that the referendum did in order to ensure that the votes of the citizens of Key West are upheld.
So you're saying pass it and deal with the litigation that we would have dealt with anyway?
I think we're in the same position. We're always going to have that threat of litigation with every single decision that we make up here, not just on cruise ships. You know that better than anyone else. Everyone comes up there and says, you know, we're going to sue you. Some have deeper pockets than others, and I understand that. And I understand the issue with Pier B being, but we're in no different position than had we not. If we didn't do this and the referendum passed, and it's in our charter like it is now in Muni Code, if you look it up, it's on in our charter right now. We're in no different position.
I will tell you, the lawsuit that we're going to face is duck tours on steroids. And I'm the last one to ever bring up duck tours. Usually when a member of the public stands out there, well, I'm going to sue you for duck. No, they're full of it. This lawsuit will be duck tours on steroids.
But what I'm saying is we would have had duck tours on steroids whether or not.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed.
Commissioner Hoover? And then
Sean, I have a couple of questions just so that I have these straight in my mind. You said that the Harris Act doesn't really play into this.
No, I said I don't think we get sued based upon the Harris Act.
Okay. But in the Harris Act, it says, and one of the points made by Cleaner, Safer Ships in several emails to me was that Pier B, the owners, whoever the entity is not the owner of Pier B, that it is the state that's the owner.
The state leases part of that bay bottom to Pier B.
But they're the owner of the actual pier. Is that correct?
Pier B.
Okay. All right. And under the Harris Act, is a transportation facility, is Pier B a transportation facility?
Again, a judge will make that call. I looked at that probably 6 months ago. And every place it talks about transportation, they're talking about your typical transportation across roads. I can make the argument that, yes, we're excluded because that is a transportation facility. Again, there's not a clear-cut answer, but that would be a defense, no doubt about it.
Okay. Commissioner Kaufman? Is Commissioner Kaufman muted? Jason, can you unmute Commissioner Kaufman?
Hello.
Hi. We got you.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I want to say that I'm really thinking about Commissioner Lopez right now. My prayers are with him. I hope we're all going to pray hard tonight for him. I don't know what's going on, but hopefully he's okay. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I think the public should know that all of us on the City Commission have vowed to support the new charter amendments, including the referenda. And I have to say that right now we're really engaged in the question of, does the city have the authority to enact a new ordinance, and will a new ordinance stand up to court scrutiny? And if the new ordinance does not stand up to court scrutiny, what will be the damages potential against the taxpayers? Because we don't want to put the city or the taxpayers in a bad position. And what we're talking about, the public needs to understand, I think, that every year the city receives about $1.5 million in revenue from Pier B. That's 25% of the net proceeds to Pier B. That means the gross proceeds are in the $6 million range. If you're considering Pier B as an asset that is putting off $6 million a year, plus the collateral income that the Pier B owners will allege, we're talking about damages that are well in excess of $100 million. That's what we're talking about. This is not anything to be scared about. This is not anything to be concerned about unless we're talking about damages that can be assessed against the city. So what I'd like to see, I think all the commissioners would like to see an ordinance in place if it's enacted within and permissible by law, and two, if it will hold up to court scrutiny. And what I don't think any of us are in a position tonight to really determine is all of this is hypothetical until we see a drafted ordinance. So I'm all for it. I'm all for review. I'm all for analysis. I would think we should invite the Safer Cleaner Ships organization to submit a proposed ordinance so we can look at it, we can review it, we can analyze it. I have no problem with that. And I think we should look at different provisions in an ordinance that if we are inviting litigation, and Commissioner Davila, I heard what you said about that. If we're inviting litigation, how can we at least minimize damages in an ordinance to be able to protect the taxpayer? So anyway, I think there's more work to be done on that, but I would like to see the potential for drafted ordinances. We can review them and so on. Another thing I'd like to ask is we've talked a lot about water quality. And some of you know that over the years, I have been one of many that have sought to see more water quality testing in our harbor. I understand that the Water Quality Protection Program through the National Marine Sanctuary had a meeting in February. I understand that there is a new testing program that is underway or going out for RFP. Is there a way we can have a presentation, maybe Patty or Madam Mayor, if you could please address that. Can we please have the Water Quality Protection Program committee as under the auspices of the National Marine Sanctuary? Can we have them make a presentation to the city, please?
Sure. Yes. Anything else, Commissioner Kaufman? Is that it?
No, I think that it would be good for us to review potential ordinances.
Okay. Well, we have three sample potential ordinances that have been provided by the attorney for Safer Cleaner Ships. Did you all receive copies of those? All right. Pardon me? In almost every email. Okay. All right. And you've received copies of those, Sean?
I have the question that I need the commission to answer, and I will answer it legally too as we move on, is do those ordinances impact land? And if so, they need to be adopted in a different section of our code via the way land development regulations are adopted. And that is your safest course of action.
Okay. And you can bring that answer back to us, whether they impact land?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So does that mean we may need 6 ordinances?
No. That means you go to the planning board first.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Sean? Okay, here's our timeline. We were speaking to the cruise industry actually today, and it looks like the first cruise ship that could possibly arrive in Key West is going to be September. So we've got a pretty tight schedule, and I know this is a major situation, but we have a meeting on the 20th, which we've already missed the agenda review for. So our next meeting is August 3rd, followed by an August 17th, followed by a September 1st. So how does that, what kind of information will you have back to us, Sean, at our next meeting?
I will have no information for you by September 20th.
Okay.
No doubt about that.
And by August 3rd?
I haven't taken a vacation in 2+ years. I'd like to take a vacation. I have one scheduled. But what I need is data as backup for an ordinance. And right now I don't have any data. Again, what was passed by the voters is one thing. What is sufficient for you to pass an ordinance is something different. And again, I understand the language is going to be the same, but I would like to have some data. on the water quality issue that Commissioner Kaufman brought up, and I would also like the data on the numbers of ships as well as a disembarkation per day. I think that is very important to have backup for your ordinance.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Commissioner Hoover and then Commissioner
Yes,
Davila.
I just wanted to let you know that I will not be here for the August 3rd meeting. I will also be on vacation.
All right.
And Sean, what as far as legislative intent for any proposed ordinance,
Health and
how would
safety.
you get that to us? Yeah.
Health and safety.
Okay.
Okay, so the answer was what? When
Well,
we can have some-
the answer was, I take it that the data already exists, and that transferring that data to me shouldn't be an issue. So
Okay.
once I get the data, I give the data to you. Certainly, there'll be a draft individually that you can review. I'll do it while I'm on vacation, so August 3rd, you'll have a draft. But again, that may have to go to the planning board. Okay, and if that has to go to the planning board, there is more time involved.
Okay,
And
we can call a special planning board meeting, though.
you can. And again, what I think Commissioner Kaufman asked for was how you limit liability. You limit liability by an injunction that the plaintiff seeks, and you as a city commission make a determination whether or not you're going to allow cruises to operate during that period of time while we're litigating. That allows them to make revenue if we're wrong. If we're right, great. But again, they're going to have to post a bond. And, a lot of what I'm hearing is, ask the cleaner cruise ship people to post a bond because you're passing what they wanted. Obviously, if I'm in their position, I'm not doing it, but I would ask for a bond. Like Rick said, my job is to protect you in the city from liability, and that's what Commissioner Kaufman's talking about.
Right, right. But our job is to represent the citizens and their wishes. So, okay, do we have enough direction to move forward? Is everybody clear on where we're moving forward? So, Patty, what do we do in the interim? Let's say we get close to the 1st September arrival of a cruise ship. Do we have a mechanism in order?
I'm going to be, I've talked to the cruise ships today. I'll be talking to them again tomorrow. They've just got on a plane at 7 o'clock, or getting on a plane at 7 o'clock. I do believe that date will change, Mayor.
Okay.
So.
Later?
Yes.
Later.
Yep.
But, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner
But Patty, we can give them direction on our 2 ports.
Yes.
That they aren't welcome.
We can, if that's the direction the commission wants to give me, yes.
Yeah, so I think we need to do that.
Is there anything else that you need direction on from us for this evening?
I'm good.
You
I think
okay?
I have direction. I think City Attorney has direction.
All right. Commissioner Kaufman? You okay?
Madam Mayor, I would just ask, I haven't reviewed yet the drafted ordinance from Safer Cleaner Ships. Can we invite them if they want to amend, maybe to address specifically the additional grounds for a lawsuit that we might expect? Are we in communication with them so we can seek additional input from them?
I think we will be working very closely with Safer Cleaner Ships.
Okay, I just think it would be important that the ordinance that's drafted is as comprehensive as possible, and I would like to request some dialogue with them pertaining to the idea of an injunction and whether or not the city would stipulate to an injunction, because that might be a way to limit liability, like Sean said. In addition, I didn't hear any feedback on when we would get a presentation from the National Marine Sanctuary from the Water Quality Protection Program.
We can reach out to them, Commissioner Kaufman. Hopefully we can get it on the August 3rd agenda.
Well, I think it's important because what Sean said is we need a factual basis for, to support the ordinance. So if we can show baseline scientific data showing the water quality and how it has improved since cruise ships have not been in the harbor. That's what we want. So I think we need to act quickly and find out what efforts are being made to do the water quality testing. Members of the public should know, some of us asked for this years ago, and there was resistance to water quality testing in the harbor. So, I've been an advocate for that for years, and I think it should have been done, and unfortunately it wasn't done. But members of the public should please take a look at the Water Quality Protection Program and support it, because we need to have the scientific data to support these types of efforts. Thank you.
All right. Commissioners, any additional comments? No?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I do have one thing. The other thing I will look for, as suggested by you this evening, is a specialist to represent the city in this field.
Okay. All right. Great. Do we have any disagreement in supporting that? Okay.
Just remember me at budget time.
Mark Finnegan's not on this call, is he? All right. Well, without any further comment, thank you all for being here this night. Thank you all for your input. So, thanks. And meeting adjourned. Thank you.